Glutathione and the ability to raise it continues to be very popular in the world of anti-aging biohackers. So let's talk about a bunch of different ways you can naturally raise your glutathione levels. Some of these you may have heard of, but I think many of them you probably haven't heard of before. So one way you might opt to raise your glutathione levels is to literally take glutathione itself as a dietary supplement. This wasn't popular in the past because it wasn't thought that we could absorb glutathione, but there is now research that yes, indeed, glutathione does appear to raise glutathione levels in humans. Now, one disadvantage of this is that glutathione itself appears to have a low bioavailability in people. In other words, we don't absorb it very well. Now, one way to get around this is to use a compound called liposomal glutathione, which I have seen used in some supplements. Essentially, glutathione is encapsulated in some fat, which helps make its way through the gut, which in turn increases the absorption of the glutathione itself. Now, one disadvantage of this I have seen is that glutathione supplements tend to be a little bit more expensive than other methods of raising this, such as N-acetylcysteine supplements. Now, speaking of N-acetylcysteine, yes, this is another way that you could raise glutathione. It is probably one of the most widely used supplements for boosting glutathione levels, although like glutathione itself, N-acetylcysteine taken orally as a supplement also tends to have a fairly low bioavailability. In fact, in some papers I saw on this, the bioavailability of NAC supplements was only about 10%. Nevertheless, N-acetylcysteine supplements have been shown to raise glutathione levels in humans, such as this paper here, where NAC supplements raise glutathione in white blood cells in people who had HIV. There's also research that N-acetylcysteine supplements can raise glutathione in people with diabetes, as well as cystic fibrosis. Now, to be fair here, there is also evidence that N-acetylcysteine supplements may not work as well in people who are healthy compared to those who are not healthy. For instance, in this paper, N-acetylcysteine failed to raise glutathione levels in healthy people. Now, this, of course, raises the speculation that N-acetylcysteine supplements may work best in people who are not healthy, such as those who may have diabetes or may have an infection or something like that. Now, that brings us to another supplement which I don't think a lot of people have heard of yet, and that's called N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester, NACET. N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester is an alternative to Nax supplements, and there is some research that it actually may work a little bit better. For example, there's research that N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester appears to cross cell membranes better than N-acetylcysteine does, and the absorption also appears to be greater. According to some research, N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester may be at least 10 times better absorbed than NAC supplements. Once it gets absorbed into the cells, N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester is converted into cysteine, the amino acid, which many of you may know can raise glutathione levels. In one investigation, and unfortunately this was a rat study, N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester was compared directly to N-acetylcysteine, but only N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester significantly raised intracellular glutathione levels, and that includes the brain as well. That brings us to another compound which I think a lot of people haven't probably heard of yet, and that's called gamma-glutamyl cysteine. Now, this stuff is a direct precursor to glutathione, which means it doesn't take a lot of effort to convert it to glutathione once it gets inside the cells. In this small investigation that you're looking at here, gamma-glutamyl cysteine raised glutathione levels in healthy people when they were given this compound at a dosage of 2,000 milligrams a day. Now, there's another potential way that might work to raise glutathione that, again, I think many people have not heard of before, and that is by raising something called NRF2. Now, obviously, NRF2 is an abbreviation for something, and I always ruin it, so I'm going to read it right from my screen. NRF2 stands for Nuclear Factor Erythroid 2 Related Factor 2. Now, I dare you to try to say that 3 times really fast. So what is NRF2? Well, it plays a role in our natural antioxidant defenses, such as synthesizing glutathione, as well as another enzyme which you may have heard of, and that's called SOD, or superoxide dismutase. So if you're interested in raising your NRF2 levels as a way to boost glutathione, there are some things that we know will do this, such as sulforaphane, which is found in cruciferous vegetables. Resveratrol is another very popular compound for this purpose. Alpha lipoic acid has been shown to do it. Curcumin, and yes, even exercise has also been shown to raise NRF2 levels. Now that brings us to taurine, which has this long history of being an anti-aging amino acid. See my previous videos on taurine for more on its anti-aging capabilities, but one of the reasons for this is that taurine appears to act as an antioxidant, and it seems to do this because it raises glutathione. So how does this actually work? Well, it turns out that the amino acid cysteine is needed not only for the production of glutathione, but also for taurine as well. So when you take a taurine supplement, you're essentially freeing up all that extra cysteine, which normally would go for taurine production, and allowing it to be diverted to the production of glutathione. Again, I'll link below to my other videos on taurine so you can learn more about that. And that brings us to a very popular supplement called silymarin, which is thought to be one of the key components in a supplement called milk thistle. Milk thistle has this long rumored reputation for being liver healthy, and also remember, glutathione also has this liver health reputation as well. So how does silymarin appear to work? Well, there is research, at least from animals, suggesting that silymarin raises glutathione levels. And in addition to that, there's also some evidence suggesting that silymarin raises NRF2 levels, which we already discussed, also plays a role in glutathione synthesis. Now, another thing that can improve your glutathione status is essentially eat a better diet. As you can see from this table, if you like foods like asparagus, spinach, cucumbers, avocados, red peppers, you're getting not only some glutathione directly, but also some cysteine as well. As already mentioned, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli contain a compound called sulforaphane, which also appears to raise glutathione levels. Oh, and by the way, pro tip here, if you cook those foods, this appears to lower the glutathione in those foods. So if you like salads, or you're like me and you toss in broccoli in your smoothie every morning, well, then this in turn nullifies that, and that's good news for you. Now let's talk about protein. So it's often said that people get enough protein in their diet. However, as we get older, this may not necessarily be true. And there is some evidence to suggest that decreased protein intake, especially in those over the age of 65, is associated with a greater risk of dying. Now, the reasons for why this appears to be true is not really understood and is probably very complicated, but one potential reason for this may be because as people eat less protein, they're also consuming less cysteine, and as we already pointed out here, cysteine is necessary for glutathione synthesis. So you may be able to increase your glutathione levels by increasing your intake of cysteine-containing foods, and that includes also whey protein. Another advantage of whey protein is that it also contains that gamma-glutamyl-cysteine, that precursor to glutathione that I mentioned earlier in this video. Whey protein also has decades of research showing that it's safe, and there is also research that whey protein increases glutathione in people with Parkinson's disease. Now, something else is starting to get some traction is the amino acid glycine, because glycine can also raise glutathione levels. This is why some people have already begun supplementing with not only glycine, but N-acetylcysteine as well. They call this combination GlyNAC. And it turns out there is some research on GlyNAC supplements. I've done videos on them, and I will link to them below so you can see the research on GlyNAC supplements. Getting more vitamin B6 in your diet may also help, because vitamin B6 is one of the B vitamins that helps turn homocysteine into cysteine, which is then again used for the production of glutathione. I don't necessarily think most people are deficient in vitamin B6, but it's something to take a look at in case you're not eating so healthy to begin with. Another popular vitamin out there that may help some is called riboflavin. Riboflavin helps convert oxidized glutathione back into reduced glutathione, which is the active form. Vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid, can also apparently raise glutathione levels, such as this paper here you're looking at, where 500 milligrams of vitamin C raised glutathione levels by 50% in the red blood cells of healthy people after just 2 weeks. Now, there's also some research on a specific eating plan which you may not have heard of before, and that is called the DASH diet eating plan. DASH, D-A-S-H, stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So this is a eating pattern that has been associated with lowering blood pressure in people who have high blood pressure. The DASH eating program is one that's rich in fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and it's low in saturated fat. So how does the DASH diet work? Well, if you're eating according to this plan, you're eating some of the very same foods that have already been demonstrated to raise glutathione.